Data Storytellers. Today
Excellent.
on the show, we have Gil Ramirez. Gil has been a longtime collaborator with us at the Data Storytellers. He attended one of our masterclasses. He had great insights. Our attendees loved hearing from him and hearing his war stories. And I guess we will explore some of his war stories now in public. Well, first of all, Gil, those who are listening who have not been working with you within our community, what do you do over at Walgreens?
Okay, well, thank you for having me in this conversation. Yes, my name is Gil Ramirez, as you said, and I have attended classes with you guys in the past. I've had a very good experience in general, and glad to be here again discussing my
We're glad to
experience.
have you.
Yeah. So what I do at Walgreens mainly, I am in charge of a couple of our analytical applications and platforms more than anything else. Some technologies on the legacy on-prem side, new things coming up on the cloud. Overall, my responsibilities range from delivery of new projects, enhancements, new functionality within our data platforms, to also the operational side, maintaining these applications, making sure that everything runs ship-shape, that we deliver things both internally and externally within SLAs, and that just we keep the ship going. So overall, it's those are my responsibilities. I deal a lot with people in the business and different areas of IT. My role really is more on the IT side than business, but I really, as the analytical platforms usually go, we deal with many different areas in the business that use the data to derive insights, to do analytics, different types of analytics, either reporting on things that have happened, trying to forecast the future. So a lot of things happening within our organization.
So we'll definitely zoom in on that, like the intersection of business and data. Before we go there, just also for more context for those who are listening. So how did you get into analytics? I don't think I ever asked you this question, but I would love to know, like, how did you end up actually in this role? What got you into analytics, and then how did your career progress over the years?
Sure. Well, I think that in general, the analytical side of things has always been one of my interests, and I would say one of my fortes. Exploring the data. I think that my engineer mindset has always gravitated towards data, towards facts. Show me the data, show me the facts. Let's understand what's happening based on information, on data. And through my career, mainly again on the side of IT, I progressed from just doing consulting, pretty much associated to enabling analytical functions, mainly dashboarding, reporting, multidimensional models with data. 20 something years ago, 23 years ago, that's pretty much when I started. I progressed from the roles of developing this functionality, these applications, dealing with databases, with ETLs, with dashboarding tool sets, into more of the management, both of people and data. And my career took me from just on the side of I would say the front end of things with tools like Cognos, 20 something years ago, before it became mostly a financial analytics type of platform, through SAP, through data warehousing with SAP, through multiple implementations with SAP, into Hadoop, data management at a large scale with Hadoop, and now cloud technologies, and now with Walgreens for the last 5 years, in terms of putting this all in concert. I would say ensuring that data makes sense, that we collect it, that it makes sense, that it is usable, and that we distribute it accordingly to user expectations. So different types of challenges within this progression of my career.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the data analytics profession itself evolved a lot, and it's really lending into now. Okay, the decade of data is upon us. Data is a new oil. We've all heard it. The buzz, if anything, is only growing now with ChatGPT, and everyone wants to find more about AI and explore AI. And I'm sure that we will talk about the specific challenges in this new landscape. But then, how did you see the challenges evolve for you? So how are the challenges for data analytics similar or different now today to what they were in like 20 years ago?
For sure, for sure. A lot of evolution has happened very rapidly, certainly in the last 20 years, and it keeps accelerating, right? I think that we are all experiencing that. 20, 25 years ago, when we were starting, it was, I think that DI in general was a new thing in terms of being able to slice and dice information, to maybe do some geolocalization in maps, and being able to just click on certain data points and explore what was behind. I think from that, we have progressed into larger models with larger streams of data, particularly, of course, with the development of the internet and internet-based applications, into not only developing or providing that functionality with very specific sets of aggregated data, but rather doing at a scale so that details of the data and large sets of data become available for this type of analysis, even on the fly, right? So that has been the challenge. And I think that everything that has transpired, particularly in the last 15 years, I think, and mostly the last 10, is let's accelerate. Let's help address the needs of the business in a faster way, in a more nimbler way. Because it's not only IT that is evolving, rather that the business environment is evolving, right? We are in a much more global world than we were 20, 30 years ago. What was happening, I don't know, in 3 regions in North America, let's say US, Canada, and Mexico, 25 years ago when I was starting. Now it's the world. Let's identify what opportunities may exist for us as a company in Europe according to these types of data. Let's contrast with opportunities or cost of opportunity that we may have in other regions of the world. Let's identify what's happening right now with this type of, I don't know, products or services. And I'm not only talking about what's happening within my organization, but in general, right, in the business as a whole, the economy of the 21st century. We need to find opportunities in almost in real time. Let's see what we can do now. Let's see how we can implement very quickly to either gain market share or increase revenues, increase profitability. All these things are really what are driving the fast pace of analytics, to the extent that all these different technologies are converging into answering those. And the challenge is to put them together, make them work. I think that sometimes and particularly talking about me on the back end of the aisle, the engineering side, sometimes people imagine that thanks to all these technologies, things can happen very quickly. And we sort of forget the human side of things. Bringing the technology together and making it work really requires a lot of knowledge, understanding, coordination on the human side of the resources, not only from the IT side, but also the business, understanding better how that technology can be implemented, how it can be orchestrated, what is required from different types of people, individuals, groups within the organization in order to make it work. So that is all the challenge, right? It's technology, it's people, it's processes, and faster than ever before.
And scaling it as well. I think when last year we connected, that was basically the landscape of where we started off the conversation. That look, the technology in and of itself, the capacity of the technology to make these things happen, that in and of itself is not a challenge anymore. It's growing, it's expanding, it's abundantly available. Of course, you need in-depth technical knowledge of how to seam these technologies together and integrate it into a business. But then on the integration side, like very quickly as a data science, data analytics practitioner, you will come up against what you already pointed out, the people bottleneck. So even when data analytics is trending, even when people are talking about AI machine learning, even when you can hear from Gartner, you can hear from McKinsey. They roll out their annual 80-page ebook on how businesses are becoming more data-driven and business leaders are investing into data analytics. There is still that resistance that you come up against when you are trying to integrate analytics into the organization, right? And I think when you and I spoke and you joined the masterclass, like that was the pivot that we actually built the conversation around. So first of all, as you entered into conversation with your peers, like what came out of those conversations as kind of like the main takeaways for you? And I already spoke about this. Actually, I think people in our community already heard you reflecting on this. But then what did you see as the main takeaways of managing people and processes when you're trying to implement organizational change to make sure that being data driven is not just a buzzword anymore, but it's really becoming a way of life? And whatever answers you give here, maybe we can zoom in on a few of those.
Certainly. Yeah, I think that we agree on the challenges on the human side of the equation. And it's, to me, those challenges span a range of different elements. It's from the technical side, of course, the understanding of technology. And I think that, as you pointed out, everybody has at least a very good grasp of what technology can do. But we don't always understand how the technology needs to be implemented in order to do those things that we think that it can do. And the how requires a lot of understanding, commonality, or common understanding rather, across different groups of individuals. On the business side, of course, it's the executives, of course, who are requesting to use these technologies in order to answer very specific sets of problems, business problems within the company or within the industry. Again, it can be about revenue or particularly in the last couple of years, during the COVID years, the problems that we had overall in the economy with the supply chain, how to accelerate, bypassing problem spots within the supply chain of different types of products. So from that into groups of the individuals that actually work with the data, either data scientists or data stewards, people who are in charge of making sure that the data conforms to certain aspects of either quality, governance, understanding across different organizations for the data actually to make sense. To people on the engineering side, like myself, either within operations or delivery, that we need to execute different types of enhancements on the data in order to achieve those goals. So bring all these different types of individuals, of groups, of visions of the data, lenses. I think that you and I have used that word before. The lenses of different groups of individuals into executing towards those goals is what is important. Is also, I would say, one of the main challenges, in addition to, of course, the technology per se, and keeping up with the technical aspects, as well as the knowledge elements that need to stay within the organization, is important as well. And that will be my last point here. I think that, of course, as the technology has evolved, as the economy itself has presented many challenges, again, particularly during the last 3 years of COVID, when we have seen also many shifts in the market in terms of, either the particular technology marketplace in the United States and in other places in Europe and Asia, where people saw many opportunities to move into other areas very quickly. The challenge of keeping the knowledge within the organization is an important one as well, because people tend to move very quickly, at least tended to move very quickly, during, for example, 2021, 2022, into different organizations. So that challenge of keeping the knowledge in place and assessing what is important in order to keep in the human side of the equation is also one of the challenges that we have needed to facilitate, bypass or fill the gaps that have existed.
Absolutely. No, this is a really cool topic of how to keep the knowledge in the organization, especially with this high turnover of employees leaving companies, joining new companies. It's very trendy today, so it's a very relevant challenge, which I'll definitely want to ask you about. And before we go there, so yes, of course, we talked about the technical side. You guys need to be always look at the work that the data analytics practitioner, someone whose craft is data analytics, you have to wear two different hats. One side, you're a builder, you're an architect, and you need to be like an engineer of solutions. You need to have that technical understanding, but at the same time, you have to be that kind of visionary who can align perspectives of different people, who can really speak into that in a powerful way to bring people together and make them see the same version of the future that you can invite them into. And as a lead, that's what a leader does ultimately. So in that, actually, I think over the years, what we found is this is how storytelling becomes very practical. Storytelling is a nice buzzword. People kind of think the data storytelling, maybe there are data points and I tell a short anecdote around that. That's not really what it is. I mean, on the leadership level,
right,
it's really about crafting an engaging narrative about what data analytics means for the company, why that's relevant to the key stakeholders that you're actually addressing, what version of the future can be possible if everyone bought into the same idea, and creating that kind of confidence and certainty around how that will actually shape out. So maybe if we talk about engaging people and storytelling, and especially if you think about like why you joined the masterclass and then how you came out and maybe some of your priorities got reorganized. Can you speak a little bit about that? Like, how do you see the relevance of storytelling when you want to implement these technologies, especially when you want to align your key stakeholders in the business?
Absolutely. And that's an important aspect of working with the data. And again, as you mentioned, you and I have spoken about this in the past. And in particular, to me, that aspect of storytelling was really one of the elements that brought me to the masterclass and to connect with you guys. I was looking for that, expanding that community of knowledge, if you will, if we can call it that way, beyond the walls of my own organization and other that I deal with on a daily basis. Because sometimes, despite the fact that, particularly, Walgreens, a very large organization, there are many different challenges, and things can be very exciting, but they can also be very demanding. And unfortunately, sometimes, even though the expanse may be ample, sometimes our hats and our eyes, can get too focused on one single view of the needs of the equation. To me, it was important to expand my the community, my contacts in a community of practice, if you will, in order to see things differently, approach other different angles on the equation, particularly again the storytelling. I mentioned before that naturally my personality, my interests have always been have gravitated towards the analytical side, a sort of an engineering mind, and I like to work with the data. I like to find facts in the data, but presenting those facts to different audiences requires also a different degree of understanding, both of the audiences and the art, I would say, of communicating. And that's what, to me, storytelling development, encompasses. It's not what you want to say, but how you want to say, how you can say it, how you have to say it in order for it to click with your audience. So, and I think that I have mentioned, or tried to mention this in this conversation. It's not only what we can achieve ourselves in single individuals in doing different types of work, but nowadays the work is cooperative, totally cooperative. We cannot do anything meaningful, just one guy or a small group of guys in a room. We have to work with others. Either it's making sense or implementing certain technologies or achieving certain goals, but actually helping the business utilize, particularly data, utilize those data elements as tools in order to achieve the goals. We have to act in coordination, and that coordination demands communication. And the communication demands different levels of connection that makes sense across those individuals. And I cannot, rely only on my own personal view of data. Maybe it's an individual on the sales side who is, to work with customers directly or works in an industry group where he needs to bring that own story. So connecting at that level is important. I need to understand his needs. I need to understand the processes as well as I need to understand the data and being able to relay that through a storytelling skills that I am in the process of developing.
Absolutely. I think that was a very like astute way of giving that panorama of, okay, what are we up against here? Because everyone talks about this, right? You go to a conference and people will tell you that, look, it's a data professional, apart from all the technical stuff and, the sponsors and the vendors coming in to market solutions, which are often, by the way, very useful. But then everyone says that, and what you need to focus on is really bringing people together and really connecting with the business. But then no one really talks about how to do that. So we see storytelling as a very powerful tool with which you can achieve that alignment and that engagement, right? Because as you said, you see data analytics in a certain way. I mean, you're a professional. You've been around the block. You speak the secret language. You use the secret handshake of analytics. And we are in this world. But when you approach someone with this in the business, there are a lot of things, especially two things. One is confusion, and the other sometimes is fear. Some of the two worst emotions. In the previous podcast, we talked about this with Vivek Patel. It was a great conversation from Ampere. And in order to break through that, the best tool that you can use, or maybe the only tool, is to get this person to see the world in the same way as you see it. But you need to bridge that gap because you inhabit different universes in that sense. You're watching different movies, right? And the story becomes what analytics is, what it means for the business, what we're doing here, and why that's relevant to you, like who you're talking to, your stakeholder. That's the bridge. And that bridge can only be like extended towards the individual if you tell a story. And now you're looking at the same thing. Now you're looking in the same direction. And then now you have the opportunity to speak that alternate version of reality into being, right? By you embarking on that journey. So storytelling becomes extremely practical in that. And it's very interesting you mentioned this whole idea of keeping the knowledge in the organization. So when we're talking about keeping the knowledge in the organization, that's a whole different thing now. So we're talking here about the processes that you develop on the data side with your team, with basically what you guys implement to keep your successes sustainable, right? Can you just talk a little bit about that? Like, we don't often talk about processes on the podcast, but I think it's absolutely crucial. So what is your view on the importance of implementing the right processes? And then what do you mean by keeping the knowledge in the organization?
What I mean by keeping the knowledge in the organization is, of course, trying to retain people, again, centering on the human side of things. And of course, we are presented with many challenges that are not only particular to the state of the economy, but also the industry and the individuals per se. There's certainly a generational shift that has come up with, the advent of the internet, the development of the internet, particularly now in our social environment. Younger people are interested in many, many more things than, people like me, from who started our careers 25 years ago. So understanding the individuals, what their challenges are, what their interests are, is important as well. And of course, us managers or individuals in leadership positions, we don't have time for everything, right? We either manage the business or the data assets, as is in my case. We manage requirements, but we also need to manage people. And management, at least to me, it means many different things. At least to me, it means also connecting with the people, connecting with the individuals, understanding where they are coming from, what they are really inching towards, what is propelling, what is motivating them. And as I was saying before, it's not just about the work or salary or position anymore, but particularly I would say on the data science side of things, or people that work with data, there are other motivators as well. I think that connecting with them, and I wouldn't say working towards fulfilling those goals, because of course resources are limited. I cannot help everybody if they are trying to change the world in certain areas, but I can certainly present a more realistic approach as to why what we do is important as well within the context of their own goals, their own achievements and pursuits, and showing that the scenarios of the forest that lays in front of us is, I think, important. And for that, I think that, again, connecting with individuals and being able to tell the story, not in this case, maybe there's so much the story of the data, but the story of our lives, of our careers is important as well. So that is on the human side and how I approach my management style. But I think in terms of tools and really more on the technical side of things, on keeping the knowledge within the organization, of course, there are tools, there are processes that are important. Metadata management is important, very important in our area, not only for the engineering side of things, but also for users, for individuals who work with the data, either data scientists or analysts or whatever. We need to understand what is in front of us. Where is it located? How different pieces of information that may be coming from different sources can be related to each other. So that metadata management is very important. There are tools, there are data catalogs that allow that to be achieved, of course, with certain levels of degrees. So working with those, advocating for the implementation, for the maintenance, for keeping them whole is important. Sometimes not only large organizations like mine, but any type of organization, we think that, or leadership executives think, okay, I invested, $12 million or whatever it is, amount of money into this today. Now I'm all set. No, that requires additional maintenance. It requires additional investments. It also requires people to maintain that. So keeping those needs in the visibility of executives is important, as well as actually making it happen with the resources that exist within my own group of individuals. So it's like with the data, it's keeping our heads in many, or our eyes in different sides of the span of data practices that are associated towards driving this goal.
Got it. Okay. I actually, yeah. So I assumed that you were actually talking about processes on your team that you developed to keep your delivery effective. And then because of the employee turnover, I thought that you were referring to keeping knowledge in the organization. But this is even more exciting, what you just mentioned,
Right.
because, okay, so it really deals with, and correct me if I'm wrong, so often data analytics practitioners talk about the last mile problem. Of course, I built something and then I need to get it to the user. It really needs to reach the user. It needs to be delivered, given to them. But actually, on the previous masterclass that we just ran, someone mentioned that, look, it doesn't stop there. So there needs to be almost like a follow-up to that, and making sure that the adoption is deep, that there's follow through on that. And so you meant, by keeping the knowledge in the organization, once you actually achieve that state of, okay, we came up with meaningful insights, the knowledge is impacting the business, that you keep those stakeholders engaged with that. Is that what you meant?
Yes, that is correct. And actually, going back to the item on people's management, one of the things that I try very intentionally to make sure that my team understands is that communicating with stakeholders is not just up to me, right? I may be the boss or whatever, and you may be expecting me to have these relationships at a different level with individuals who are counterparts from the business. But you are also a leader in knowing the data, in knowing how we operate within it, understanding how it relates to other items or aspects of information within the organization. So you also need to develop these relationships, not only with your counterparts, but also at a higher level. You are a provider of knowledge. You're a valuable person in that regard. So for me, also motivating those skill sets, the development of those skill sets is important within my group. And that's actually what I meant with trying to help individuals, my people, to develop those areas. So both in terms of career and also personal development that exists within the organization. I may not necessarily be able to help individuals if they want to be, a CEO in the next 5 or 10 years. I wish that everybody would be able to do that, but I can certainly show why the work that we are doing today is important in order to develop the skill sets, the relationships, the knowledge and understanding of different audiences that is important to get to where you want to go. So again, it's about developing or being able to tell the stories, being able to run with additional responsibilities in regards of the data itself, knowing the data, and developing the processes, or rather keeping the processes that help us maintain the knowledge within the organization. So all those things are important.
Absolutely. And I think you're hitting on like a very important point here, because even though data science is called the sexiest profession of the 21st century,
right?
A lot of people are concerned about, maybe even just certain aspects of that work being automated out of existence, their work being devalued through that potentially. And a lot of people are taking ownership of this right now, and they are taking on board what we call complementary skills. I mean, we talked a lot about that also on the masterclass. Those complementary skills really just ensure that facts, as you call it, data is facts, and need to present the facts to the organization, because these facts are powerful. I mean, they make money, right? So if these facts are acted upon, there is an impact on the revenue. People will get higher bonuses, careers progress, careers are made, and all that. Now, that objective fact that technology makes available and the technical knowledge makes accessible, right, without influence in the business, it won't have any value. And the influence side, so we always say this could be our tagline, I guess, that objective truth needs more influence in the business, right? And influence itself has nothing to do with technology. It has to do with certain different factors. We always bring this example of how influence often is mystified, is this kind of thing. It's like, ooh, people telling stories, the archetypes, Joseph Campbell, all that stuff. Yeah, that's very useful, but it's actually very simple. It's kind of like setting a fire. A fire cannot be, you cannot just, force it into existence. You need to create the conditions for the fire to emerge.
Absolutely.
And in the case of a fire, that's flammable object, heat, oxygen. Now, if those conditions align, the fire emerges, whether you want it or not, right? But if one of those are missing, then there's no fire. So influence is the same. And the pillars, what we found over the years is really, we talk about this a lot with our community members, is trust, value, and then the third is what people often miss or dismiss is position slash trust. No, position slash status, right? So trust, value, and then how you're positioned in the organization. And that is true for your function, your data analytics function, but also it's true for you as a professional, either you're a data leader or even just a data scientist, right? You represent, you're an ambassador of analytics. If you want to engage the business, you need to push those levers. There are very specific things you can do to elevate yourself in those areas, and these feed into each other. So the more you grow on one, the other two will also be enhanced, and vice versa. So you want to get into this upward spiral when you're in a position when, look, you want to do anything, instead of experiencing all these invisible, almost inexplicable resistances on the business side, the opposite happens. Like people lean in, people embrace whatever you want to tell them. They are seeking ways to collaborate with you because they trust you to provide value, because you're someone that they prioritize due to your position and status in the business. Now, those skills, very specific skills, that data science professionals are already using to future-proof their careers, because these are the elements that no AI, just because of like the nature of the landscape, AI will do a lot, and AI and different new technologies will take over a bunch of things. But these are specifically human endeavors that can, if you implement them, they're force multipliers. So your impact in the business will be just strongly enhanced and boosted. So on that note, so what are your best ways to communicate these ideas, to your team, for example? So you mentioned that, you can't be there on the front lines as a leader. You need to prioritize things as well. So do you have any specific ways of really implanting that knowledge and really lending that understanding to them so that they will start developing themselves in the right way?
Yeah, I would say through my experience, it's I think it's a balanced approach. As I was saying before, nobody can spend a good enough time in everything that we need to do. So we need to pick our fires, right? Our battles and prioritize. And to me, helping develop my team in different areas is what is important, because it is through them that I can also accomplish more things. And I believe that it is the same in the practice of any group of individuals, particularly again, as we're talking into data management, whether it's data analysts or individuals like me on the data engineering side. Um, it is through the work that we do, or the development of our resources, that we can achieve more. So what I try to do is spend a balanced amount of time looking into details, helping individuals, not only them getting knowledge or getting my experience on things, or understanding my approach to doing certain things so it can be replicated with others, but also for me to understand how they operate. And also I learn a lot from individuals who are actually doing the work, more of the detailed work with the data. I try to spend time looking at the data in a more detailed way every once in a while, in order to gain knowledge and maintain my own knowledge of the data at a detailed level, and then derive certain insights, particularly in regards to developing the process of deriving insights or validating that process. I like to understand also how individuals are making, what type of inferences they are making based on what type of information they may be bringing to the equation when we're trying to resolve a problem. And also, one important element is you don't have to do everything yourselves. And just because maybe the business in this case is reaching out for us to answer X, Y, and Z problem with a certain report or with a certain stream of data, we don't have to do it by ourselves. There are other individuals in the organization, either within our own IT teams or other individuals that we have worked in the business before, that may have valuable input here. And this is where relationships and past experiences are important too. I think that keeping a certain goal of feeding this type of what I call a virtual cycle of information that is based on experience, my own experiences, the data itself, and relationships. Taking advantage of those three elements is important in order to arrive to a solution or a way forward faster. The last thing that I will say about this is that also many times, particularly again on the engineering side of things, we try to look for perfection, or to have all the I's and the T's on the either in the data or in the processes before we actually go out and start declaring our the results of our battles. I think that is not the right approach, because that usually takes much longer to achieve, and may lead into the wrong path. So we need to continually work closer with other individuals who can present a valuable input or aspect of the data as we are doing analysis, in order to derive or validate certain propositions faster, and arrived to an agreement on what we need to do. And sometimes that ultimate agreement or path forward is not necessarily the ultimate one. Maybe it's also a path or a way to get into the next stage as we work towards a final solution. So this iterative approach, to me, is an important one as well, in order to move faster, because otherwise we are never going to, we go into sometimes into that analysis paralysis state that I think that we're all are very familiar with.
Absolutely. And I really like the idea of you as a leader actually looking at the data, so that you're in touch with what's happening on the ground, and bringing your built up intuitions and your skills of being able to act on those to optimize what you guys are doing. Super valuable. It also brings a question to mind, which maybe just ties back a little bit to the whole idea of bringing the data and the business closer together. So what is your view on data literacy, and especially when you think about how data literacy, it's one of those new things that different people can mean different things, right? by it. So sometimes data literacy is really for someone can be making sure that everyone knows what a data lake is. That's kind of the ambition that they have. And for some people, data literacy can be a tool to actually come closer to the business, closing that gap rather. And one thing you can do is you proactively approach the business, speak their language, like turn your own narrative into something that they can easily understand, and making sure that it's not full of jargon, making sure that it's really simple and slick, and it actually appeals to the personal motivational levers of the individual. Or you can also bring them up to your level. Maybe they need to speak more data. Maybe they should be the ones who upskill themselves so that they can be a part of the our little data world, which is not that little, it's growing, right? So without leading the witness too much, because sometimes we do bring competing and sometimes controversial opinions into this. It's not like it's not a hill to die on for us, but we have our own opinions. But what is your take on this? So what is the right balance here?
I will say again that, at least in my experience, it goes back to those relationships that I was describing before. And it's not, just about, getting to know an individual and, arranging for a coffee every once in a while. No, it's rather being able to develop the confidence of working with others at a value level, providing valuable expertise from our side to those individuals, as well as we take that value into our own objectives and goals. I will put an example. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation about a certain problem with an individual on the business side that was looking to understand what we were doing, my team and others in the engineering side, in order to, bypass certain problems that we're experiencing with a type of data. And I was describing providing a little bit of the background of, how these things develop and what we have been doing over the last few months in regards to achieving certain stability in the way that this data is being brought into the organization and how we are relating it to other domains of data. And he proposed the take on, after I was exposing my experience or the facts within our side of how we're doing with the problems. Although I was trying to do it at a way that was summary and very business oriented, I kind of also completely take my hard hat of the engineering side out of the equation. So his take is, why don't we, go back and forth? Let me reiterate what I'm hearing and help me develop a story. Although he didn't use the word story, let me put it in. He said, let me put it into a statement that can actually be brought to our executive, the individuals that we need to report to. So we went through an exercise of a little bit back and forth in terms of these elements of truth, these facts that I was relaying to him in regards to not only the data, but the way that we are operating, our own processes and sometimes limitations, and making it easy to understand for an executive who is not that an executive is not capable of understanding this necessarily, but time is of essence. If we are going to have, 15 minutes with this individual, we need to present the data in a way that is easily understandable and can lead towards the right decision and the right action. Because what we want ultimately is to have an action or a set of actions associated to this problem. Either it is investment, which is something that I was requesting yesterday, or certain spend in a certain area of our engineering side in order to bypass a problem that we're having with some resources, consulting in particular. So this type of back and forth or interactions rather with other individuals is what I mean with relationships, developing internal relationships with other areas of the organization, whether in the business, whether again, continually within IT or whatever. Third parties could be, particularly in large organizations, we interact with a lot of vendors. So having this, developing these relationships and this value links within the organization is important in order to generate action faster. And again, it comes back to telling the story, not only within amongst ourselves, but in terms of what we need others, particularly those executives who can make things happen, go into taking the right action based on the right information. So I'll put it that way.
No, that's fantastic. And we always look at storytelling through that, threefold lens of you have the storyteller, so who the story comes from. Like that's very important when it comes to how the story is embraced by the person that you're talking to. So that's the where the story is received, right? So those are two players, and then you have the story shared in between them. So when you want to be an effective storyteller, which means, again, storytelling not for its own sake, but to bring about certain outcomes, it can only be accessed through that very particular tool, then you need to focus on those three elements. It always boils down to that, right? And the one crucial element, which, I mean, I would love to explore more, but unfortunately, I don't think we'll have the time, but maybe you can speak into this a little bit. Like, there is a conception issue with data analytics. The data analytics leaders and data analytics itself is not being seen the right way. The leadership presence is not being received the right way by people. A lot of times data analytics gets shoved into this kind of mental box of data analytics people doing data analytics things in the data analytics corner. A lot of times this is how you turn into a data analytics vending machine. And that's not the right way. A lot of times people think that that's almost like success because you're getting engagement from the business. But if you have higher ambitions, being in that box can really work against you. So how do you think that you should be seen? Like what actually facilitates you getting the right opportunities and you getting the opportunity to do meaningful work with your stakeholders? How should you be seen? We always bring that example of the data conciliaire, which originally I think it was from Pete Williams from Penguin Random House who dropped it, and we keep using this. So how do you think that you should be seen to have a strong, influential leadership presence as a data analytics practitioner?
Certainly, it's we go back to telling the story and helping achieve goals. Of course, within a professional setting, being part of any organization, particularly economic organizations, it could also be maybe nonprofits, but a for-profit organization like the ones that we work for. We are always pursuing economic opportunities. Either reducing cost, increasing value, increasing revenues, increasing profitability, centering our thinking in terms of the actual goal, the goals that we're pursuing as an organization is important. It's either about our customers, serving them more closely, getting to understand them better, maybe helping grow our brands, our different lines of business, or reducing costs or increasing profitability on certain aspects of either services or products. Those, I would say, are the most important aspects. So keeping an eye on that within every story that I'm going to tell within the organization, to me, that's what's important. And that's what helps me connect with either executives or other individuals within the organization at a value proposition level. I'm not just wasting people's time telling them about my problems with the data or with the engineering processes or with our systems, but I'm bringing, I'm bringing a story about the challenges that are in the way of us as a company achieving those objectives of being closer to our customers, to generating revenues, increased revenues, or whatever. That's what is important. And what I'm telling you is important because I can tell you exactly where the problems are and how those are affecting those objectives. So to me, it comes to that. It's keeping the focus on what is important, the goals of the organization, our mission statement, our key performance indicator, also understanding those. I think that is important. For me, it's important to understand what revenue means, what increased profitability means in different areas of the business. So those metrics are important as well to understand. And ultimately, telling the story, the ability to tell the right story in the right amount of time. So I would say those are the three most important aspects.
Well, all I can say is amen. And I think that's a good note to finish on as well. So thank you, Gil. This was fantastic. I was looking forward to this conversation. Again, thank you for your contribution so far to our community. If anyone would want to meet Gil, I think you'll be able to do that later on in the year, maybe in person, right? So we look forward to that as well. That will be our grand finale for the year, only for our alumni. So yeah, we look forward to that. And Gil, we look forward to working with you in the community moving forward.
Excellent. Same here. Thank you, Laszlo. And thanks, everybody.